Paddy Power, sponsors of the Road to Cheltenham.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Road to Cheltenham. This is our Christmas special. There'll be some looking back, but main will be looking forward. And I think we need to be honest. In some cases, we're going to be guessing, aren't we? We're going to be using our reasoning to work out where horses are going.
In some cases, I'd like you to pick the cases in which we won't be guessing as to what's going where and who's going where. But look, yeah, plenty looking forward, as you said, and there will be a shed load of guessing. But most people are guessing in this game anyway.
We've obviously got entries for some races. In 2 cases, we've got some decks. In a couple of cases, we don't even have entries. So that's going to be fun.
It will be. We'll make it up as we go along.
We absolutely are. We're going to need your help. And therefore, we have enlisted Josh Stacey to ask you this question.
Yes, Lydia, it's very, very busy here in the social den and also a little bit dark. We want to know your opinions this week on your boldest shout, your best bet during the Christmas period. It can come at Limerick, it can come at Kempton, it can come at Leopardstown, anywhere you like, but it's got to be in a Grade 1. Do you think Madgeborough can bounce back after his return? Do you think that Factor File running in the King George means he's a certainty at Kempton? Let us know your thoughts at home. I'll be looking at all of them and putting a few towards Lydia and Ruby. Hashtag Road to Cheltenham on X, Facebook and Instagram. I'll see you in about 45 minutes.
And we look forward to that, Josh, and we look forward to your thoughts as well. This is obviously a British and Irish-based programme. Every week it is, but we've got, for the Christmas festival, Kempton, Limerick and Leopardstown, particularly having their bold races on show. There's a feeling over here on this side of the Irish Sea that things might be a little less bleak and less one-sided than they used to be. I was getting this vibe quite broadly from trainers. And funnily enough, I brought this up with Dan Skelton at Cheltenham over the weekend, and this is what he had to say.
You don't hear the old, Ireland's got it all their own way as much as you used to in the build-up to the season. Because we're not into the main festival season yet, are we? But, there's been a lot of that over the last 3, 4, 5 years, and there's all of a sudden a little bit less of it, and I think rightly so, because I wouldn't say the English are coming, but you look at the depth that we have now, it's certainly superior to where we've been.
You've always said
and football's coming home too.
It already has.
Oh, sorry, it already has.
You've always said these things are cyclical. What's your sense?
It is cyclical, and once you start to get novice hurdlers, you start to feed into having novice chasers, and they eventually bring you graded horses. And obviously last year Dan had the new line, but that's what you need, and England needs more of them. But it is cyclical. The wheel turns in every sphere, and it won't be long before. Well, what's long in racing? Another 5 years, there'll be some turn by then.
Yeah, we'll talk about what's long and what's short term in a few moments' time. I think you'll all agree out there that Ruby is the optimist and I'm the pessimist. So I wanted to examine the data on whether this feel-good vibe is justified. So I asked our good friends at Timeform, and they had a look at their ratings, their top 100 ratings by country, Ireland versus the UK, since the 2010-11 season right up until this season, and obviously that's a work in progress. And that shows you that the UK used to have the majority of the top 100 chasers by country. These days, that's not really the case, and it still seems not to be the case. And if we roll on to the top 100 hurdlers by country, it's even worse. Green shoots, you're going to be saying. Green shoots. Well, I asked them about their current novice hurdlers. So out of their top novice hurdlers, Timeform have 63% trained in Ireland and 73% of novice chasers trained in Ireland. Yeah,
but I still think a lot of the ratings, especially in those chasers, goes back to Cato Star. I think when they got him up into the 190s for winning his third King George, you go through Madison to Burley, it was never that big a performance. And I think that distorted all those ratings for years when he got that high, and then they realised, oh, he's actually not that far in front of the rest. everything got brought up to him rather than him brought back down. And I think it's taken years to wash out.
You see it with other sports, though. Sometimes a concentration of competition brings up those around them. Might that not be a factor as well?
Possibly, but listen, I was up on his back and he was the best horse the very first year he won it, yet he got it rated £15 better 3 years later. I could never explain it, and I think it did huge damage to the whole British handicap system.
OK, we're not going to relive that. Unfortunately, we are going to talk about Kempton. You'll have seen the headlines that its long-term future is once again under threat. I'm not going to get into the politics of that. I think that's for elsewhere. This is an action-based programme. So I'm going to ask you, from your unique perspective, what do you think the loss of Kempton would mean for British jump racing and for jump racing overall?
I think it'd be huge. And you can always say that. We were saying a few months ago the loss of Thurles would be huge for jump racing in Ireland, and it would be because of the ground it produces. Kempton is no different. Kempton is, at this time of the year, can have unique ground. It's a fast grade 1 track, 3 fences down the straight, 2 down the side, 4 down the back. It's a great test. It lacks a hurdle or two, if I'm being really honest. It could do an extra hurdle or two on the circuit, but it was always a really good chase track. The King George was a unique test, and wherever you do with it, wherever you move it within the Jockey Club's portfolio, that becomes a completely different race. You send it up to Liverpool, really testing ground. You send it down the road to Sandown, completely different track. The long pull home in Sandown, so much more reliant on stamina. You can't send it into the Cotswolds because they can't get the trains to go to Kempton on Boxing Day, let alone go to Cheltenham. So how are you going to get anybody to go there on Boxing Day? So I think it's unique. The only track that could in any way resemble it, ground-wise, may well be Ascot. Downhill start, 4 fences down the hill. At least it's a bit more reliant on speed than the other tracks. But I mean, are the Jockey Club going to close Kempton and give its crown jewel to Ascot? That's not going to happen. But look, I think it would be a big loss. But I think the one thing that sticks out to me, like, it'll be a huge loss to jump racing. It'll make zero impact to the flat because they're going to build them a whole new track in Newmarket. So just stand on jump racing, and there's no one in the flat even giving out because it doesn't matter to them. They're going to get a whole new racecourse over.
I mean, I know that people have been talking about Quarterstone, obviously won the King George 5 times. Desert Orchid, those great days when the Grey won it 4 times. The likes of Wayward Lad, more recently One Man. The point is, the calibre of horse we want to see in Britain at Christmas. And we've already got a Welsh National where you can run and stay and be hock deep. And the reason I wrinkled my nose at Ascot, I agree, it favours the handy horse, but it tends to produce deeper ground than this.
Oh, it will. And look, Kempton can get deep too. Seymour Business won on slowish ground. It didn't look in any way quick there with Desi coming up covered in mud. But and if it rains next week, Kempton could get slow. But 7 out of 10 times in Kempton, you're going to get a dry surface.
Yeah.
You're not going to get it anywhere else.
Yeah, agreed. And they're talking about the Jockey Club investing in Cheltenham and Aintree. For me, Kempton, Boxing Day and the next day, linchpin of British jump racing. You need to see good horses at Christmas. Right, we've said our piece. Let's move on with...
No, we haven't. We're only getting started.
Yeah, we could fill a whole show with this. But we need to move on to the established chasers, what they're getting up to at Christmas, starting with the King George. The obvious place to start is with the betting. Let's take a look at that. And there's been quite a bit of movement recently. Now, you and I have always highlighted that we thought it was a large possibility that Factifile was going to run in the King George. It was massive. JP McManus versus Willie Mullins chess, the only game that there is. If they face any other opponent, it's totally one-sided. Factifile is going to Kempton for the King George and now is joint favourite with Gaelic Warrior. Yeah,
and look, it's a very logical argument for JP to make. I mean, Factifile, Ryanair winner, he looks a King George horse, which we've always said on this show, and he'll have to take on Gaelic Warrior, and you get the rematch from the John Durkin, and you chuck in 3 or 4 British horses to make it a really interesting contest.
Let's get Ruby's idea of how you think this race is going to be run this time around.
And we said this, you asked yesterday when we were doing a production meeting. I don't know. So I'm going to explain why I don't know. Look, you take last year's race, Bambridge sits in down the inside, and Ile France books out in front. So he's guaranteed to do that. By halfway, he'd a half-decent lead in last year's King George, and they ran him down. Now, people will say, well, Gaelic Warrior will make it. He booked out in the John Durkin. But he as good as ran away with Paul Townend. And that was over 2.5 miles. He's not going to want him running away in a King George. Whereas if he reverts to, I'm not saying maybe as exaggerated as the way that Patrick rode him at Aintree. You can see him off that bend. He just tore down to the next fence with Paul. Patrick dropped them right in an entry, and on the far side is Djelo. Now, he did settle at entry, and he came from the back of the field to win. I would argue he's a much better horse now and had a better prep, but he's more manageable ridden that way. Factifile, we saw him sitting second in the John Durkin. This was him sitting just off the pace in the Ryanair as well. I think he's guaranteed to be second, third, fourth down the inside. He's going to be in the second row. Jango Baie bucked out to make it in the Arca last year, but that was 2 miles. When he went to Aintree, he too just sat behind the pace under Nico, and I think he'll be wherever Factifile is. That second, third, fourth, second row of the King George is where he'll be. Then you have Jukebox Man. He didn't make it in the Cawdor Star. He sat just behind the pace. So even a third horse sitting just behind the pace. Now, he did make it in the Graduation Chase when nobody else wanted to, up at Haydock, but I doubt he'll book out to make it. He didn't in the Grade 1 last year. I can't see why they would this year. Djelo bounced out in the Peterborough and rocked along in front, but at 2.5 miles. Djelo in the Charlie Hall in his first run of the season over 3 miles is dropped in last. So he's the other one, a bit like Gaelic Warrior, that's thinking, well, what did they do with him? Gaelic Warrior and Djelo are the two that can go forward and also go back, and they'll be the interesting ones to figure out.
So I think we both expect, if he runs, Ile-France to go on. But last time he sort of slowed it down mid-race. He didn't do that eyeballs out gallop that he did when he won the Quarto Star.
No, but I think if he jumps and goes, you'll get a decent pace, and you get the likes of probably even Jukebox Man would be happy at halfway to make sure they keep going. He might want to make it for the first mile, but he might be the one that forces Ile-France on from halfway.
Yeah, can Ile-France go? Pulled up, hasn't really showed any form since the King
Probably
George
not, but
year.
you still want a front runner.
OK, let's go through each of their cases one by one. You've talked about the race tactics. Gaelic Warrior, he's still unexposed at 3 miles. I mean, that was only his second attempt at it when he won the Bowl. He'd run well at Punchestown to win on his last Novice Hurdles start over 3. Other than that, you know, his world is his lobster. Yeah,
because he got, I suppose, looked quite free and got keen when he started over fences. He went right back down and trip, and there was talk of him being and won an Arkle. There was talk of him being a champion chase horse, but when he went back through him, he's pretty much a stamina horse, really. Stayed really well as a 4-year-old, as you say, won a Daily Mirror in Punchestown over 3 miles. I don't see stamina being an issue for him at all, and as you say, he is unexposed. He just has to settle, some bit anyway. He can't. I don't care. Like, Undersow maybe got away with it once or twice, but I can't think of the horse offhand that's run away in a 3 mile race and won. At 2.5, 2 miles, they can get away with it up at this distance. If he runs away, he's goosed.
So keep an eye on him early and how he's going through the early stages. OK, Factifile, when they met in that thumper of a race in the John Durkin, you asked the question, why didn't Factifile get by?
I know, he looked, because even when you watched it, he did get by. He jumped the second last, landed in front. Why doesn't he win? Then. Yeah, why doesn't he win? Like, Gaelic Warrior had torn off and done things the wrong way, but look, Gaelic Warrior just rallied back. Does Kempton suit Factifile? I think it really should. And he looks an ideal King George horse to me, and he has an outstanding chance. He's a very, very good horse. And like I was reading Patrick Mullins talking about him yesterday, and I think he summed it up right. It'd be a great race to watch.
It's going to be fantastic. It's a belter of a race. His standout form is at 2.5 miles, though, fact. And Kempton can actually be quite, if it's run well, it can be a test.
It can be a test, but it's almost 2.5 in the Ryanair and on the new course. I'd be confident that he has the pace to always travel and be there. And he got to the last with Galopin Des Champs at Leopardstown, which is almost 3 miles and 1.
Jango Baie stepping up to 3 miles for the first time, but you saw him there in the Arkle. Although he wasn't able to live with that 2 mile pace at one point in the race, he was able to jump soundly just off it.
Yeah, and he had the early speed to hold the position. He lost it at halfway, or just before halfway actually, but like, I thought he was good in Ascot. You know, Nicky's horses are in really good nick. Again, he's going to be, I can't see him being, he got outpaced in an Arkle, but I don't see him outpacing the King George, do you?
No, not at all.
No, not at me either. I think he'll be bang there, and if he's good enough, he'll be close enough turning in.
And he might have been flat at Aintree as well. Paddock judges were saying beforehand, I wasn't there, but that the horse didn't really look himself prior to the race.
He probably put plenty into the Arkle, to be fair.
Yeah, exactly. And also, I think the owner mentioned that the horse had some lameness issues afterwards as well, so it was great to see him bouncing back at Ascot. The Jukebox Man, again, last season when you were watching him as a novice, when you saw him twice at Newbury and in the Quarto Star, you were talking about his pace and how actually he would be effective at shorter. Yeah,
I loved him early doors as a novice last year. I thought he was very good in the Cawdor Star. I think Kempton really suits him. I think he's a very good jumper. I got that experience in the Graduation Chase at Haydock, and leaves him spot on for it. But you just wonder about the form of last year's Cawdor Star. I thought on the day I liked what I saw from the winner, but you go back to the form, Highland hasn't really enhanced it, and that makes you question it some bit. But still, sitting watching last year's Cawdor Star, I thought, Jesus, he's a good horse.
Yeah, he looks like quality. He looked like quality in the John Francombe as well. I think he's got the most to prove in terms of what he's achieved so far.
Yeah, he definitely has. But look, he was a decent novice hurdler, and there's no reason to suggest that he couldn't have progressed from what we saw last year.
OK, Djelo is only 7. He's done all that and he's only 7. People will point to his Group 1 record, but he's only 7. Yeah,
he is only 7. The entry at the back end of last year was a bit disappointing. He was good in the Charlie Hall, very good in the Peterborough. Yeah, will I fall out of the truck in Kempton if he wins? No, but will I be surprised? I think I might be.
I think he's one of the... Clearly, I think he's an unlikely winner. I'm just trying to think of scenarios whereby he might run well. Might they be a bit more positive on him now that they've seen that he stays 3 miles in the Charlie Hall?
Yeah, well, I thought it was more to settle him in the Charlie Hall. I mean, he got running a little bit with Charlie Deutsch down the back in Wetherby. He passed 3 or 4 and approached the one fence. He can take a bite and attack. They set their stall out in Huntington, but up at 3 miles, they probably will, won't they? I suppose if you know where you look at it, he's either going to stay or he's not. And he does stay. He won it with Charlie Hall.
We should talk about the title holder, obviously, Banbridge, who ran down Ile Francais. Joseph O'Brien has said he'll be wearing first-time visor. He wore first-time cheek pieces to victory this time last year. He'll have a first-time application of Sean Bowen as well. He tends to improve quite a bit from first to second starts. He showed that in the Hilly Way.
He did, but last year was second to third start at one with King George, and I wonder, is he run short myself?
OK. And also they're here seeking the better ground. Are you listening, Jockey Club? Let's move on to the Savills Chase.
What did they give a Leopardstown? Good to you or something?
Well, we were looking at the current forecast. Soft on the hurdles course at Leopardstown, good to yielding on the chase course. At Kempton, it's good to soft in places, but they're both due to 10 to 15 millimetres between now and the day.
Leopardstown will want it. Soft on the hurdle track because they pump the money into flat race and water the hurdle track all summer and don't water the chase track. Turns up at Christmas then, neglect it. Jump racing again, you see.
This is the continued party political broadcast on behalf of jump racing. Let's move on to the Savills Chase. Here's the betting. I know the way you're thinking is the 7-4 favourite. Galopin Des Champs is 2-1. He's won this race twice before. Fast or slow, we'll come to him. He's also clearly potential runner in the King George. 4-1, 12-1 bar. Let's talk first off about Galopin Des Champs and what we're expecting from him. Let's look at what he achieved in the race last year first off.
Yeah, look, last year he was coming in off the back of a defeat, obviously, in the John Durkin. Paul bounced him out, competitive field in Leopardstown. No issues with staying, no issue with stamina. Factify made a mistake at the second fence away from the stands. Ian Maximus is out the back flat out. I know the way you're thinking was a bit sloppy at that fence for Keith Donoghue, but Paul set a really good tempo in this race. He kept turning the screw, Galopin kept answering, and look, where you got a great race off the bend for a few seconds, in fact the file got to him. By the time he jumped the last, you knew there was only going to be one winner, and he powered all the way to the line. But that was Paul Townend riding a race with Galopin Des Champs. It's probably difficult to be that aggressive on him next week.
Yeah, I thought they were slightly deferential early on. Obviously, he powered away later on, and then there's this at Punchestown where Paul Townend decided to make the running on him at last in the Punchestown Gold Cup. But what do you make of this?
He never saw a road before. He'd only crossed it 3 times in a couple of John Durkins, and I remember many times he's crossed the road halfway down the back in Leopardstown and in Cheltenham off the home turn. Don't know why he did that, but Lydia will not be putting cheap pieces on.
No, I'm not suggesting that's going to happen. I'm just pointing out he's a bit quirky. Funnily enough, when I was watching the Irish Gold Cup back, which we're going to come to, when he beat Fast or Slow, do you remember when he was keeping Fast or Slow out, not allowing him up his outside? He then had a look at the wing. I'd forgotten about that.
He did, yeah.
So maybe actually that's just, he's always had that quirk.
Yeah, well, I suppose you get very tight to a wing, horses can't have a look. Not something you love to see, but like even crooking it or propping at the road, I'd prefer if he was concentrating a bit more myself now.
Yeah, quite. It sounds like, I just was worried that he's just getting bored with the human pursuit of horse racing. Let's have a look at Galopin Des Champs. Ruby's mentioned his improvement from first to second start. This is on time form figures. Now, I should point out as the caveat that maybe he's needing his first run more as he gets older. He's improved quite a bit from first to second start for the last 2 seasons. Clearly, the step up from 2.5 miles to 3 miles is also a factor there. And just to point out, when he was a novice chaser, that 168 is the highest chase debut rating in time form records since the year 2000. So the idea that he didn't need to improve to win the Group 1, Grade 1 novice next time is palatable, I think. But I mean, that shows you what he can find from first to second start, which plays into your point, doesn't it?
Yeah, I would be more thinking though, as he's getting older, he's definitely getting slower. So I would think there should be more improvement to come about when he goes all the way up to the Savills rather than the John Durkin. But look, it is his first run of the season. He's in great nick. He's loads done, but he's still first time up.
I know the way you're thinking was graduating from novice company in this race last year. He was beaten 15 lengths in the Savills Chase by Galopin Des Champs, patiently ridden. He then beat Galopin Des Champs by 6 lengths in the Gold Cup. We've seen him, had a prep in the John Durkin, and I asked Gavin Cromwell about his thoughts ahead of the Savills Chase.
Listen, he was beaten a long way in Punchestown, but he went a furious gallop and he was flat out and just wasn't sharp enough on the day. But I think it's woke him up a bit and he jumped really well and he stayed really well. So he was beaten a long way, but hopefully when we step up and trip and as the season progresses, we'll see the best of him.
He was learning on the job, obviously, last season in his second season over fences. Do you think he's ready to be the Gold Cup version of himself at Christmas?
Yeah, definitely a lot closer to it anyway, for sure. If you roll back the clock to when he won the Conqueror, and you know, his jumping back then was very sticky. Like, listen, he had no fear of him ever falling, but he was just slow and spending a lot of time in the air. And you know, through the season last year, Keith rode him all year and gave him confidence, and he improved from race to race. And I think we're in a good place now, and hopefully he can be competitive from here on.
Slightly mixed messages, I thought, because he's in a good place now, and yeah, definitely he'll be the Gold Cup version of himself, and then qualified it well closer to it. But maybe if Galopin Des Champs isn't on A game, that he won't actually need to pull out a Cheltenham performance. Yeah,
it'll depend on how he jumps, as Gavin was saying. Like, he was as sticky as a novice. It all got better with him. It got better with him through last year too. And if he jumps and keeps himself in the race at Leopardstown, he's a massive runner. And Gavin's horses are definitely in better form now than they were at the John Durkin.
No, he's favourite to depose Galopin Des Champs on the basis of...
I could see why.
Yeah, so can I. Fast or slow? Often billed as the nemesis to Galopin Des Champs. Does the fact that Factor File goes to Kempton mean that Fast or Slow is more likely to stay for Leopardstown, or does it make no difference?
I kind of thought it would, but I don't know. The market seems to think he's 4 or 5 to 1 in Leopardstown. I think he's 40 to 1 in Kempton, so the markets definitely think he's going to Leopardstown. And I know it's mad to say that taking on Galopin Des Champs might be easier than taking on Gaelic Warrior and Factor File, but possibly it could be.
I think given the circumstances, that's right, yeah. Personally.
It is. It sounds mad to say it, but it probably is the reality.
Yeah. Ageing as well. Let's remind ourselves of how good Fast or Slow is. He's twice down Galopin Des Champs at Punchestown. He got pretty close in the Irish Gold Cup in 2024 as well.
Yeah, he did, and look, he obviously picked up an injury last year after running in the John Durkin. He was travelling really well when he unseated rider in the Gold Cup a couple of years back too. But look, he does, as you said, Lydia, get right to Galopin Des Champs here, and he beat him in Punchestown a couple of times. Maybe Leopardstown, real stamina, probably favoured Galopin just a little bit more than Fast or Slow, but look, he's a very, very good racehorse. I thought he ran encouraging in the John Durkin. I'm sure Martin Brazel was delighted with him, and with that run under his belt, he can get close, can't he?
I think so. I thought he ran very encouragingly in the John Durkin, and I think this is the race for him. Did you see Galopin Des Champs there? Just the exits are there, and there. Let's talk about Jerry Colombe, shall we? Because he's got relatively close to Galopin Des Champs a couple of times as well. Chased him home in the Gold Cup, chased him home in a Savills Chase in 2023 as well. Yeah,
and Jerry probably has 2 options, Lydia. Does he go to the Savills, or does he go to Tramore on New Year's Day? And look, being realistic, after missing the time he's missed, I'd probably go to Tramore with him. I think it's a great starting point for him. Look, this was him, and they were disappointed with him on this occasion behind Galopin Des Champs when Galopin galloped all over him. But look, he did bring his A game to that year's Cheltenham Gold Cup. and he was the one that pushed Galopin the furthest. L'Empresse led them down the hill. Brave Man's Game got up on their outside, but to be fair to Jerry Colomb, he was the one that laid down the challenge. He's a very talented horse, but I'd be a little surprised were he to go to Leopardstown. Gordon does think he'll improve considerably,
yes.
and I know Tremor probably wouldn't be ideal for him. He does stay really well, Jerry Colomb, but on guaranteed testing ground in Tremor on New Year's Day, and just be a great starting point, wouldn't it?
It'd be a lovely reintroduction, wouldn't
Yeah.
it? Yeah. That's where I'd go, but it's over to Gordon Elliott to decide what he does. But those are the two options you would think for Jerry Colomb. Just great that he's back. Gordon and Jack Kennedy were really pleased with the way the horse had worked the other day, so that's really positive news. Right, let's drop markedly in trip, shall we, and have a look at the Rewards Club Chase betting. This is over 2 mile 1 at Leopardstown. Inothewayurthinkin won't be running as we thought, but does it seem likely that Mashborough might just run?
I think there's a big chance, yeah. He was left in this morning. He's been doing plenty since Cork. He seems to have come out of Cork really well, and I think it is the plan to let him have a go, yeah.
It's quite unusual. You've made this point many times on Road to Cheltenham about the turnaround for Willie Mullins. This would be a 20-day turnaround. The shortest turnaround that Marshborough's had is 38 days previously between the Irish Arkle and the Arkle. Why? Why would we be seeing him this quickly?
Here, probably to get 2 runs into him between now and Cheltenham, and be that that's the champion chase, or you find out that he's not a champion chase horse and it has to be some other race. But I'd imagine it's fact-finding. His Hedy Ray run, it's not a champion chase run.
And do you anticipate they'll follow your advice and take the earplugs out?
I would. I'd say the earplugs will come out all right.
Right, OK, all right, that's what we'll expect. I'm expecting a much better performance personally. But we have a horse who is proven at Leopardstown. In fact, his standout performance have come here. That is Solness. He won this race last year. He went on to win at the Dublin Racing Festival as well.
He did, and kind of announced himself maybe as a player in this division. Now, I know he's always a horse I think he's a hard horse to get a handle on. Booked out JJ Slevin, and it looked like the first day that kind of disregarded him, left him go along in front. He wasn't going mad. He gets a much different ride from Danny Mullins, but Dino Blue found a 50 Marine Nationale. He got on the front end, and JJ, Gaelic Warrior as well, was able to quicken away from the back of the third last, and he got these horses on the stretch. Now at the Dublin Racing Festival, Dan jumped out with him, but Danny let him slide from the third fence to the fourth fence and build up a huge lead. Again, he went much harder than JJ went, and he ends up hanging on then on the way home. But actually, when you look back at it, it's probably Marine Nationale that deserved all the credit for this contest, because he was the one with Calixios that had to go and try and chase him down, and he gets fairly close to him on testing enough ground, and Solness was able to last home. But on reflection, I know you're looking back and you know the result of the champion chase, you're thinking, God, I should have given Marine Nationale more credit for that. But
I had exactly the same thought. I think we should have given more credit to Marine Nationale, because he was having a building season and he built all the way to the Queen Mother Champion Chase. They dodged the Fortria, understandably, because it was rescheduled on worse ground. What are you expecting from him seasonal debut?
He is the champion, so what are you expecting? You expect him to win. That's what you expect of champions. Yeah, so do I. So I guess anything other than winning will probably be slightly disappointing. But then again, you have to look at the context of it. Like, if you're training him and he looks like winning going to the last, to me at Leopardstown, if you look like winning off the turn and then you don't get home, so be it. But you'll have to look like he was going to win.
And Mashborough will have a run. Solness, for whom it was his 7th start of the season, count him, I'm not even including Punchestown, will be having a seasonal debut this time around. And Dino Blue took until the new year to get her act together last season. She
did, and probably should have won the 4-3. A couple of mistakes were doing for her there, which I think is unlike her. I think she's a pretty sound jumper, but she's a good mare, but it'll depend on what Mashborough turns up, and Marine Nationale even more so.
While we're talking about mares, we should look at the Barberstown Castle Chase, which was won by Only by Night, who is a proper 2-miler. I thought that last season. I'm only more convinced now.
She is a decent 2-miler, but again, and this is a good performance. Your champ Kylie, Elit L'Antique in the pocket down the inside. She travelled well for Keith, and was Gavin's only winner for a long time. Good turn of foot in the pocket, fell at the second last, but just not sure beating champ Kylie is grade 1 2-mile chase form.
OK. Well, she does manage to wear him down. She looks like she's idling a little bit, like she did in the closing stages of the Arkle.
She could be, but the horse to beat her in last year's Arkle has gone to 3 miles.
Yeah. That's true. Those are our thoughts then about the established chasers and what they're up to over Christmas. The next section is the novice chasers. So we've got some performances to look back on, and we'll start at Cheltenham with 6 Mile Bridge beating Calafet on Vol and Royal Infantry, those two making their chase debut. I really liked how much 6 Mile Bridge had learned from Ayr.
So did I. I couldn't believe for such a small field how competitive this was from the outset. You're thinking this could be a tactical affair, but these went at it every step of the way. Jump the water, jump 6 Mile Bridge down the inside, and Smithspile Bridge is flat to the boards at the back of this ditch. You have to get a squeeze along there to keep up with Cafe on Vol and Royal Infantry. Down the hill to 3 out, and 6 Mile Bridge is getting on top. Cafe on Vol makes a mistake at the second last, but to me the result was pretty much known at that stage. It was a good performance. It was really competitive, and I think 6 Mile Bridge is going forward. Now, the finishing speed wasn't massive, but I do think 6 Mile Bridge was that idle up the straight too, so I wouldn't be too worried about that.
Yeah, it's a proper race, just the 3 runners, so don't be fooled by that. At Scilly Isles, I think grade 1 over 2.5 miles at Sandown is the aim, and Keelan Woods was talking afterwards saying that he thinks a positive ride over short of 3 miles is what suits that horse best. A couple of less competitive contests. Regent Stroll beating Jericho de Repine
at Wincanton the other day, and these are actually going to the first now. They're not going to the start. As the first fence comes up, they both hack down and climb out over it. Regent Stroll was much more manageable, there was no doubt about that.
Lethargic even?
Yeah, a little bit, a little bit lethargic maybe. That's 4 out, they still haven't really had a race yet. And then they got off the bend into a bit of a dash, and Regent Stroll is gone, and Jericho de Repine doesn't get any closer. Really low, quick and slick at 2 out. I watched it, Lydia, and it definitely better from Regent Stroll than what we saw in Newbury, in that it was controlled and it was manageable. But I didn't watch that race and think, wow.
Definitely not. Paul Nicholls was talking afterwards about the Pendle, the Scilly Isles, potentially Aintree. He didn't really volunteer Cheltenham at all, and I thought the Jericho de Repine was just watching on in the straight.
Turned into a dash and he was gone, wasn't he? But I didn't.
It was a non-race.
You watched it, yeah. That's what I thought of it too.
Yeah. Another non-race, I think, was Jiggs Forge versus Lucky Place at Newbury.
It was, yeah.
Although I quite like Jiggs Forge as a horse. I think he might be a proper stayer.
Yeah, definitely stay as well. Yeah, disappointed with the
Okay. Diva Luna, we should talk about her, because she had a bit of a race as well, because why not put it up to her in the Lady Godiva at Warwick?
Yeah, and this was last Thursday. Booked out in front down the inside under Ben Jones, wasn't. This was the only mistake Diva Luna made. Guessed a bit at that fence in Warwick, and then she was good after that. A bit clean there, maybe. A little bit hesitant, but after making a mistake with a mare, you wouldn't be too worried, because she warmed back up to it, and solid jumping, good performance. Again, where does she end up? Up in grade, but there looks to be plenty under the bonnet, and look, she's another good mare that we've got to watch in racing, and that's good.
Ben Pullen was talking afterwards about taking the geldings on with the mare's allowance in the Scilly Isles. It sounds like it's going to be a good Scilly Isles.
It could well be a good Scilly Isles, yeah. Now, if they don't fancy taking each other all on that day, they can come to the DRF as well. Seeing as football's coming up.
That would be absolutely great. That would be great. We're going to hop over to Ireland for our next clip, actually, and this is Pron Guard Artois, who I thought was settling for third and then really responded to pressure.
Yeah, so did I. Booked out on the inside, King Alexander in the middle, Funicula on the outside in the purple and white. They get it right for a change, I did. Ditch across in the stands. Paul was out wide on Funicula, and he's creeping into the race. I did think Gordon's horse was booked for third there. King Alexander jumps on with Brian Hayes, and I thought Paul had a chance of getting to him, but to be fair, I think Willie's two just got tired, and Gordon's horse has kept going. I don't think it quickens up to win. I just think Willie's pair fell in a hole, and Prengard Artois kept going, but they did put a mile clear of some all right horses, and I think there's plenty of races to be won with the 3 of these.
I thought you were just showing off with your second Funicula, just for the record. Let's move to Punchestown next. I have to think really hard when I'm saying that horse's name.
You like this one, Pure Steel, wasn't it?
I did like it.
Obviously going the Spillans Tower route for the same connections. It's a rated novice chase, but go on, you liked it.
Well, I mean, I know the pure form is not worth much, but I love the way that he jumped. This is 2 miles. He's bred to excel at 3 miles properly. He's going to be a decent horse. Now, maybe he might not go to the very top. He might not be another Spillans Tower, but that's a good horse, despite the fact he's a rated novice.
Made a good argument.
Yeah,
I hope you were listening.
I can't tell whether that is a good argument, or whether rather he thinks it's a good argument or not. Right.
Convincing argument then.
You mean I talked a lot. Let's have a look at the declarations for tomorrow's Grade 2 2-mile 2 furlong Howden Noel Novice's Chase. It features the horse that should have won last year, bar for mistake at the last Personal Ambition. His form has fallen apart. That Wetherby race is represented by Push the Button, but perhaps the winner is likely to come from the other three. Steel Alley, who we like so much at Carlisle. Not Salva, No Questions Asked, who somehow didn't win at Newbury, and Jax Jr., who we also liked at Kempton.
Yeah, Jax Jr. was good at Kempton. This is a decent contest, three of these. No Questions Asked, coming down a few furlongs, will definitely suit. Travelled like the best horse in Newbury, but didn't get home, and when Dingo battled back to win. Steel Alley was really good in the graduation chase at Carlisle. They're three good novices. That'll be a decent contest tomorrow.
And then we've got the Grade 1 Quarter Star over 3 miles, course and distance to the King George on the same day. This is where we're totally guessing because we don't even have entries. I'm expecting Wendigo, who beat No Questions Asked in the John Frankham. I'm expecting Salva, who won at Sandown. And here's a kite I'm flying at you, Ruby Walsh. Kitzbühel. Might Willie Mullins break almost the habit of a lifetime and run a horse like him over 3 miles before the new year?
Well, what Willie has this year is probably too many horses for Limerick. Obviously he has final demand, but he's a bit light maybe for Leopardstown. Plenty of horses for Limerick. Kitzbühel, Paul won't even probably be in Limerick, will he be? Savills Chase Day, Ballyburn as well. Paul won't even be in Limerick, so I'd say Paul will be angling for something to come to the Cowler Star anyway, and Kitzbühel would probably look the obvious one.
So it's not a kite that you've downed immediately?
No, it wouldn't be. I know if I was Paul Townend, I'd be trying to get one of them to come in here. Whether Willie Mullins listens now or not would be a different story, but if I was him, I'd be making a strong argument.
Wendigo, Salva, either of them float your boat?
I liked how Salva learnt on the job at Sandown the last day.
OK. We just mentioned Leopardstown, and obviously Robio Coolio's path towards the racing post has been somewhat cleared by Kopek de Board not being there. Might Salvatore Mundi run here, because he does have the option of the beginner's chase the following day? He
does, but I'd say we have plenty of horses for the beginner's chase, and I would have thought, look, Willie has only left 2 in, hasn't he? 3, sorry, Westport Cove will definitely go. Cargeese obviously got beaten in Cork, and Salvatore Mundi was beaten at Thurles, but they're the only ones in, and I'd say probably not enough races to keep them all apart. They'll have to go. Something will have to go here and here. I would imagine it'll be Salvatore Mundi.
So that's the race that's been reinstated, the 2-mile one, kicking out the 3 miles at Leopardstown. And the Faheen over at Limerick has been increasing distance by 1.5 furlongs, and that is the destination of a certain final demand. Who dares take him on? Who dares take him on?
Well, look, with Willie's horses, Jimmy Desai, Predator's Gold, Gold Dancer, they probably will. And if Kitzbühel doesn't come to Kempton, he'll be there as well. There's not many other options for him, but to be honest with you now, with all the novice chasers for Christmas, I'd probably have the same respect for Romeo Coolio. I think he'd win too, but I'd hate to be trying to follow this fella. And he won in Limerick last year.
OK, so that is the novice chasers. Next up, novice hurdlers. Right, so again, back to Cheltenham and looking back a little bit now. Old Park Star has announced himself for Nicky Henderson and Nico de Boinville, showing more pace than they expected.
I'd say shown a lot more than expected, full stop, more than even pace. I happened to come off the stand behind Nicky and was asked him, and he said that was a surprise, and I said, well, I prefer surprises than disappointments, and he agreed. But I really liked this horse. Thought he jumped really well, very clever with his feet, loads of scope. I don't know how strong a race it was, but there's very little Old Park Star can do about that. Love the way he quickened up, jumped the last, love the way he goes to the line, finishes really strongly. Like, he can only beat what's behind him. And I think he was impressive. When you talk about the revival of English horses, this is where it starts. And we've seen 4, maybe 5 or even 6 novice hurdlers do this in the UK this year. And that's a good sign.
It is a good sign. It was a steadily run race that he kind of quickened off, but nonetheless he was very impressive. And of course he's got a stable companion as well that is rather talented, Active Innocence. We might be seeing him on Boxing Day in the Formby at Aintree. We might be seeing him in an introductory hurdle at Newbury. I think Nico was trying to suggest that Old Park Star might want to go up in trip and Active Innocence stay at 2 miles. You'll understand that from a jockey's perspective. Nicky wasn't quite so sure.
I wouldn't be suggesting if I was Nico. I'd be absolutely... That one's 2.5, boss. Or governor, sorry.
There was a Grade 2 3-miler as well at Cheltenham, and it was a blanket finish. It was a steady sprint. It was won by Carlin Rigg.
It was a steady race and probably an interesting race to watch, and they do get probably forcing themselves a little bit quick down the hill. Conman John went along in front. Carlin Rigg was watching on, along with They Call Me Hugo at the back. And I think this is a race, Lydia, that any one of 3 horses could have won. It's on the nod in the end. I think maybe if Conman John gets a bit further off the bend, he lasts home, but he gets forced into committing a bit earlier. Carlin Rigg comes down the outside, and the one in behind, They Call Me Hugo, Sean Bone, just here, he goes to switch, but then when he gets over here, actually Harry drifts, and he doesn't get committed to the last. He ends up not getting into full cry and ends up a length down. I think he's probably the unlucky one, because when he gets stuck in, this horse starts to fly, but he probably has a length too much to make up. Carlin Rigg keeps at it strong on this side, but it was a dash, and I actually do think if the horse in front had gotten another 50 yards off the bend before he had to go, he'd have held them all.
And do you think he was disadvantaged, Conman John, about being a little bit further out from the rail?
Possibly. I didn't walk the track, so I don't have a strong opinion.
OK. They Call Me Hugo was slightly babyish beforehand, but he showed plenty in the race. I quite liked all 3 that came home for different reasons.
Yeah,
they're talented enough.
I think they could be, yeah.
Right, going to move to mares now, and Old School Outlaw was able to down Bambino Fever, last year's Cheltenham bumper winner, on her hurdling debut.
Yeah, and I think Old School Outlaw was pretty impressive, actually. They went along pretty much side by side behind one that tore off in front. Jack ended up in front of Paul then, and Bambino Fever has to go and follow Old School Outlaw. Thought they both jumped very well, and Jack goes after the one in front, so Paul was following him second last. Paul sits back up here as Jack is starting to build it up, which kind of made you think like he thinks he's going to pick Jack up, but actually then when he goes about Bambino Fever, the mare in front keeps picking up,
she does.
and he just can't peg her back. Now I'd say if you gave him another go on her, he'd probably he would do 2 things differently and maybe get to Jack sooner, but I think the mare in front really rattled, and I loved how far these 2 pulled clear the third. I think these are 2 really good mares, and yeah, I do think Paul would love another go, but not going to get another go on that one.
Yeah, having another go. The result might even have been the same. I'm not sure which way
I'm not, but when you sit up at the back of the second last, and then the horse in front gets away, you're always thinking, gee, I'd say he'd love another go, but I agree with you, I'm not sure he changed the result.
I want to add Echoing Silence as well, who won the Punchestown listed mares hurdle.
Yeah, Amen Kate, who's in and done Tremor, or Thurles even on Sunday. That was her Saturday even, just dropping Sean Flanagan at the start, and she's a decent mare. Echoing Silence went along. Wasn't a madly strongly run race. Switched from Diesel at the back. It was a decent bumper mare. She's been a little bit high and clean in her runs over hurdles this so far even. I did think Henry's mare kept at it really well, Echoing Silence. We've seen loads of good mares in these colours in the past, and Switch from Diesel, who doesn't like the stick, she can't get a backhander. She just seems to run up behind Echoing Silence, but I think Switch from Diesel would probably run up behind lots of horses.
Yes.
Just going by seems to be an issue for her.
I'm just remembering Air of Entitlement last year winning the Dawn Run on the basis having won on St Stephen's Day at Downroll, and that was it. So I just was eyeing that warily.
Yeah, I think when you look back at her form though, it got some huge boosts after.
It did. That is right, that's true. Right. Christmas time, feature novice hurdles, the Paddy Power Future Champions novice hurdle. We do have some betting for that. It has a certain Willie Mullins flavour. It
does, yeah. The Devant en Font, who won at Thurles, Sortudo's the Cork winner, and Love Be Tender, who's won twice. Cocktail Brute is in there, the Royal Bond winner, who battled hard on that occasion to beat one of Noel Meads. But decent contest. I really liked Le Devant en Font at Thurles. If you were offering me one, he's the one I would want anyway. Yeah,
I got that sense from you when we were talking about Le Devant Enfant, but I thought Sortudo was pretty decent as well.
He was a decent bumper horse too, and that's Cocktail Brute and Blake, I think, if no means beside him, but I liked the horse in the bottom left box there.
Okay. And we also have the Formby, the Grade 1 that used to be known as the Tolworth. The artist formerly known as the Tolworth, which is now at Aintree. It was won by Jango Baie in previous years.
How long before we're saying that about the King George?
Well, yeah, let's not get into that again. It features my daddy Paddy, who's already won a couple of times impressively for the Skeltons. Upon Tweed for Nicky Richards would be an interesting contender, but this horse might scare people away.
He might, but the one you mentioned at a price, Upon Tweed, I watched him in air and I thought he was decent. Looked a nice horse as well, but look, this fellow has been very professional, very good at what he's done so far. Was good at Carlisle, and look, they had the new lion last year. They know what a really good novice hurdler is, and they're raving about this fella.
Okay. That is the novice hurdlers. So in the next bit, we'll be looking at the established hurdlers. Now, obviously, we've got the Grade 1 long water Ascot on Saturday, but first, some surprising news. Gavin Cromwell announced, or was asked about, and said that Flooring Porter, the 2021 and 2022 Stayers Hurdle winner, is back in training.
Where's he heading for, the Grand National? Kerry National.
Last seen when he won the Kerry National, you're right,
yeah.
in September 2024.
Yeah,
Bit small, isn't he?
No. Probably same size as Tiger on, is he?
Not these days.
But look, yeah, great to have him back, or if they get him back, fair play to them.
I asked Gavin whether he had still got it, and he said yes, he's definitely still got it. So that would be great to see. Really good news. Right, let's have a look at the long walk betting, shall we? And the interesting one was that JP McManus runs both Honesty Policy and Impose Toi for Gordon Elliott and Nicky Henderson, respectively. What do you make of the rematch between Impose Toi and Strong Leader? Strong Leader had to concede £6 to the other horse when beaten.
Yeah,
the
and obviously up to a Grade 1 now, back at levels, it'd be a different contest. Strong Leader, is he as good at Ascot? I liked Impose Toi the last 100 yards at Newbury. I wasn't sure about him stamina-wise. I loved the way he went to the line. I thought he really stayed, and I think with 2 runs under his belt, Impose Toi, Honesty Policy. When did we see him last? Punchestown?
Yes.
I think it's going to be hard for him first time up in a long walk.
It is.
With all the rain that's fallen in London today as well.
Going over to Britain and facing the established hurdlers. But he was a progressive novice hurdler, wasn't he?
He was a decent novice hurdler, and obviously Aintree was when he really came to the fore. Honesty Policy, when he won the 2.5 mile at Aintree. You have Follicula down the inside, Cappaget Pike and Regent Stroll down the inside, and look, he wears them down. Regent Stroll is just about hanging on. Cocktail Divan is the one that's going to fade out a shot, but you watched him here and you thought, God, he'll go under a bit, won't he? He'll go under a little bit of distance, and I thought he was decent there. Went to Punchestown then and ran up second behind Jasmine DeVoe, and he improved with every run last year, to be fair to Honesty Policy. His run at Punchestown was better again. He to take on the Albert Bartlett winner, jumped through at the inside of the second last hurdle, made a race of it all the way to the last hurdle where Jasmine got it wrong, and Paul ended up losing his irons, didn't he, and rides him home without them here, Jasmine DeVoe. But that's pretty strong form, and he has a chance, but without a run, I would be favouring Impose Toi.
That is the point, without a run. I love his head carriage. Honesty Policy is a really well named horse, I think. Right, the Christmas hurdle at Leopardstown is run over 3 miles, and it potentially features a rematch. Here is the betting. Ballyburn is even money to reverse form, the Hatton's Grace form, with Chupu at 7-4. It seems that, provided it is soft enough, Chupu is going to run. Now, Gordon Elliott was saying, is Ballyburn just too active a horse to really excel over 3 miles? And he really fancies Chupu maintaining superiority over an extra half mile. Yeah, and look, Gordon's definitely entitled to think that way. Personally, I prefer to back Ballyburn after he's gone a mile. I know what's happening. I would take considerably shorter if he switched off than even money now, and he could run away. You are acknowledging Gordon's point, though, aren't you?
Absolutely. Yeah, definitely. And he has to switch off, and he'll be hoping that he won't be as fresh or as enthusiastic with the run in Fairy House under his belt. Yeah,
Gordon making the point that really good stayers tend to be a bit behind the bridle, so he fancied Chupa maintaining that superiority. The Yellow Clay might also be running there after that grueler in the hurdle. Yeah, I probably look at and sure Gordon has freshened them up well, but I do think that was a strong case watching that race of putting the third hurdle back into the straight and having. We'll get a clue from Colonel Mustard potentially at Ascot tomorrow. How about Bob Ollinger? Will he run? I'd imagine if Chupu runs, it'll mean it's soft ground, and that might mean Bob Ollinger doesn't. But I think actually this was the winner of the Stayers hurdle from last year, this race. I think Rachel pulled him out too early, went by home by the Lee, landed upsides off the home turn with Hewitt, got to the front, and home by the Lee came back at her. She went to Cheltenham in March and she didn't produce Bob Ollinger until she was at the last hurdle, and I think that's where mistakes can teach you so much. And I think that race was the winner of it from last year, but I wouldn't be surprised if we got
genuinely slow ground at Leopardstown and Chupu goes if Bob Oliver doesn't come to the Relkeel on New Year's Day. He's been there before. Here he was beating Maria's Girl, strong leader, and Ollie Murphy's horse, who I can't think of in the middle, is something Dante. Go Dante, or Brewing Up a Storm.
Brewing Up a Storm, yeah.
As our producer whispers into my ear there, I didn't think
Andrew did do that,
yeah. Bob Oliver scooted away to win. I wouldn't be shocked if he turned up there if Chupu runs at Leopardstown.
Despite the £7 Grade 1 penalty?
Yeah, but I'd imagine, yeah, but if you're running Chupu, it's because the ground suits. That means it's probably not going to suit him.
Okay. Right, our Christmas hurdle on this side of the Irish Sea is over 2 miles and it's run at Kempton. We don't have the entries at this stage and it's been the subject of quite a lot of speculation, but Sir Gino, it seems, is going to make his return there.
Could it be a match?
Well, I mean, in effect, I think in effect it will be. It might not even be that.
No. Wonder will Anzanan come? He might. Or he could, yeah. He's definitely be entered anyway. He still could come after he's run the fighting fifth. But look, it will be good to see Sir Gino. We thought it at the very start of the year, if things didn't go Constitution's Hill's way, would this fella come back? Now, as a juvenile, he didn't always convince with his jumping, did he? We watched him jump 2 there, 2 mistakes, absolutely skies the second last and bunny hopped the last on his debut at Kempton. He then went to Cheltenham on trials there, wasn't it? And I think Nico was out for some reason, maybe he's at some other meeting. Not James Bowen rode him on this occasion. Jumped somewhat better, but a bit ponderous there. He didn't scream at you like that, I'm crying out to be a champion hurdle horse, the way he was flicking over hurdles, but what he did always seem to have was a huge engine, and he powered away this day to absolutely bolt in. Miss Cheltenham obviously went in, she Cargisi got on his tail, then he got on her tail, they got to the first hurdle down the back, got to the second last hurdle and he has her covered. Again, kicks it out of the ground, but I was, you know, and after being part of a yard that was sick in March, I thought he did really well to come back and win the race at Aintree in early April. He obviously won a fighting fifth, and then he went to Kempton, and you're wondering how you ever considering questioning this horse's jumping, because it was incredible in the chase last year when he beat Ballyburn. He has a huge engine, he's a very good horse, but he was going to have to take on the champion hurdle heroine, isn't he?
But he did put up a very strong performance in the fighting fifth. Nick Henderson does think he's a particularly brilliant chaser, however, and this is the logical place to start after that quite severe leg infection. He'll be taking on the lucky Golden Ace, who's now got 2 open Grade 1s to her name.
I wouldn't mind owning a few lucky ones like her. Look, and the question mark with some people will be right-handed flat track, but this is her winning in Taunton as a novice, where she absolutely bolted in. She is also a Kingwell winner, wasn't it? Narrowly, but she's still a Kingwell winner. Did jump to her right on this occasion, and I know Jeremy Scott wasn't impressed with how she travelled or jumped on that occasion, but she still managed to get the job done. So she has Taunton form, Wincanton form, and look, this is a run at Punchestown, which is a flat-ish right-handed track. It rides like a flat track any more than an undulating one, and arguably you could argue it was one of her best runs this race. Cargis is behind her and Stateman wins the race, but look, she's a very, very good mare, of that there is no doubt. And then if people say, well, what about Weatherby? She probably wouldn't have won best turned out in Weatherby. She ran that bad and she was beaten before she turned in, so I think the ground will be fine for her. She has match practice and race fitness over Dickie's horse.
Yeah, absolutely. I think she did win best turned out that day, as it happens, but she also escaped dirty. Both Ruby,
sentimental vote that was.
It's the right decision that Alexei has gone to Ascot this Saturday rather than the Christmas hurdle.
I think so. If he's going to be at that grade, he's a good thing off 146 or 7 or whatever it is.
Certainly, and when you look at the opposition, I think it's the right decision. Right, final race to look ahead to is the December hurdle, the 2 mile Grade 1 at Leopardstown, for which Lossiemouth is 2-1 on. Brighter days ahead, who was imperious in this race 12 months ago. She would need to be supplemented. She's 7-2, it's 5-1 bar. Now, you've made a point that you don't think that Lossiemouth is a natural 2 miler. This series in particular, should we be worried on the inside track at Leopardstown here?
Yeah, and it will be, like, they're giving the hurdle track a soft, but when they move into the 29th, they'll move on to the very inside, and that'll be considerably drier ground as well. Look, she probably won't have a Burdett Road to follow at Leopardstown, and she'll get a chance to get on her feet and warm up. Now, she did come home well, and she ran Constitution Hill to a couple of lengths, but look, I do think that, and even the way, to me, it was even the way Paul rode her in the Morgiana. he was so positive on her. He was always likely to make the running, but it was just how far out he upped the ante for Nadawi and Naranci behind him. Down to the second last hurdle and away from it, he wasn't giving these a chance to get on the bridle behind him, and he squeezed her all the way up onto the bend. He made sure she had a run. She'll have that race under her belt. But it's considerably different opposition for her on the 29th. She's entitled to be 2-1 on favourite, and it'll be interesting to see how she gets on.
The other interest, of course, will be brighter days ahead. I mentioned how she was so imperious 12 months ago, but she'd had a stepping stone from the Morgiana. She also had a pacemaker. This is first time out. I can't see this kind of performance
No, and this was actually her third run last season. She'd won it down Ryle as well, and they went hammer and tongs, and Stateman never got on the bridle. But like, you just how fast they were gone. Look, King of Kingship made a bad mistake there. Sam Ewing took it off his pacemaker at the second last. She was long and low and fast at the last hurdle and just gets there. But like, it was, as an athletic performance, that was a performance to watch.
It was.
I know she didn't back it up at the Cheltenham Festival, but on the day, that was a performance to watch.
Yeah, it shouldn't be devalued in retrospect because she didn't produce it again, because it was absolutely superb performance. Not expecting to see that this time around.
Neither am I. And even looking at the entries, I'm not sure where the pace angle is in it, but I would be surprised on her first start if they made that much use of her.
Agreed. Just a quick mention to Hello Neighbour. When I asked Gavin Cromwell to volunteer his significant other than I Know the Way You're Thinking for Christmas, he mentioned Hello Neighbour. Seasonal debut, though, first chance in open company, was third behind Lulamba in the juvenile at Punchestown, final start last season. Right, that's our gallop through Christmas. In a few moments' time, we're going to be joined by Josh with your views.
All right, lads, it's been a long day. Last thing, our ad slot for the Road to Cheltenham. Patrick, I want you to look into that camera there and say, hi, I'm Patrick Mullins and he's Ruby Walsh. And if you enjoy his analysis on Road to Cheltenham, you might like Paddy Power's From the Horse's Mouth podcast, updated weekly and available wherever you get your podcasts. Very straightforward.
All right, sounds easy.
Ruby, all I want you to do is look happy and smile. So, Patrick, if you give it a go in your own time, that'd be cool.
Hi, I'm Ruby Walsh, and that's Patrick Mullins.
No, okay, you can't even get your own name. Amateur jockey, amateur broadcaster. I don't know what that is. Forget about it.
We brought Josh out of the darkened room, blinking into the lights. Josh, what are they saying out there?
We asked for people's naps during the Christmas period, and plenty of people have sent some in. Justin from Paul Brown, he says the Jukebox Man is definitely my left field selection. Single figures for the King George, but many are not looking in his direction. Is he overlooked?
No, he's the right price and he's a good chance.
Rio says fast or slow will win the Savills Chase. Galopin Des Champs will need it. I know the way you're thinking is working back from March and the race will cut up.
I quite like that view.
Yeah, I think, I know the way you're thinking will surprise a few.
Well, Nick said that Champ Kylie, if that scenario happens, is the bet.
Took a couple of runs to settle well enough to win over 3 miles last year, didn't he? Mm-hmm. After running over 2, maybe.
David Brown, the Jukebox Man, has no chance of winning the King George.
I like a strong view.
Everyone's getting giddy over a horse who beat handicappers in both of his graded returns and the time at Kempton as well. Cal Brown says Gaelic Warrior and Factor File won't win the King George. They'll be done late by staying on Jango Baie. This definitely brought some conversation because James G said Jango Baie won't be within a fence of them turning in.
That's brilliant.
Has happened in King George's, though.
Yeah, it has.
But good chance he's within a fence?
I would have thought so, yeah.
Hazel Brennan.
I'd hate to be laying Jango Baie, by the way.
Yeah.
Do you quite fancy him?
I think he's a big chance. It definitely wouldn't be my idea of how to make money anyway.
No,
what do you fancy the King George?
I think I'd be leaning towards Jango Baie as well. I think Factor File out the two of Willie's, but Jango Baie, just loved the way he did at Ascot. He was so good.
I much prefer Gaelic Warrior of the two of Willie's, I have to say. So difference of opinion here.
Maybe a three-way match bet. Hazel Brennan says Madgeborough is going to bolt up. Full faith in him. Dino Blue and Solness will ensure he gets the gallop he needs and something to aim at. Take the 6s for the Queen Mother Champion Chase whilst you can.
See, I don't dislike that view either. I mean, taking on Marine National, first time out for him, second time out for Madgeborough. If the earplugs come out, your theory there, we know the talent is there to unlock. 6-1 for the Queen Mother Championship seems big to me.
I like it.
No, he doesn't. He's not having it.
Not
I
convinced.
prefer to see him below the start in Cheltenham now. We'll take a few points shorter.
I think if I like it, you're definitely off for that. Do you want to know my Christmas snap?
Yeah, I do, please. Yeah.
Why?
I do, Josh.
You do?
I do.
Thank you. Someone does. I think Tipu's going to win the Christmas hurdle. I like him at 3 miles.
Okay.
I agree with, I'm not sure exactly who said it, but maybe Gordon said it, that Ballyburn just does a bit too much.
It was Gordon, absolutely.
Looking forward to him. And I'm looking forward to Heldam, a bumper horse. Lots of whispers about him.
Heldam, yeah.
Yeah.
I like it. Well, Josh will be joining Ruby and I at Leopardstown, and our producer this evening, Andrew Blair-White, will also be there. It's our now traditional mashup to reflect on what's happened at the Christmas events. And you can watch that Road to Cheltenham mashup on the 30th of December. But for now, that's the end of our Christmas special. Thank you to Josh. Thank you to Ruby. Thank you to you for watching. Merry Christmas. We'll see you soon.
Paddy Power, sponsors of the Road to Cheltenham.
Watch live racing now on racingtv.com.